Here we go. The White House has announced that it is going to be ramping up law enforcement operations and law enforcement presence in Washington, D.C. This comes after Donald Trump has repeatedly threatened to federalize Washington, D.C., take away home rule, which is the ability of the city to govern itself, and essentially put it under federal control. Now, he says the reason this needs to be done is because of crime related issues. But all reports suggest that crime is actually down, not necessarily up. As a resident of Washington, D.C., I will be on the ground examining as the Trump administration rolls out this increased law enforcement presence, because thus far I have not seen the evidence of crime that Donald Trump is suggesting. There is crime. Not going to say there isn't, but just like any other big city, there is crime, but it is not any greater than other cities. And while the residents of DC don't necessarily feel unsafe, I will be interviewing residents of DC. I will be on the ground and watching as this increased law enforcement presence begins. Now, there is concern overall that the Trump administration may send in National Guardsmen. That's not the plan right now. That is part of a plan that is being drawn up, but that is not the plan in this moment. Right now, it looks as though there is just going to be an increased presence of quote unquote law enforcement, not necessarily National Guardsmen. If and when the Trump administration does deploy the National Guard to Washington, D.C., and potentially federalizes the entire city, you better believe that I'll be there showing you what's actually happening on the ground live and in real time, because this is an important story that needs to be covered. Now, DC has what is called home rule. It's the ability to govern itself. It has an executive branch, the mayor, it has a legislative branch, the city council, and it has a judicial branch, the judiciary, the courts. Just like any other state in the nation, DC has three independent branches that work together for the benefit of the residents in the city. And yet, the Trump administration may take the extraordinary step of taking away their power and essentially putting it under the federal government's control. We'll see what happens. And before I continue, please consider supporting my work by subscribing to my Substack today, clicking the button below, or sending a one time donation via Venmo to Aaron Parnas. Now, meanwhile, a Houston area Trump supporter, the owner and operator of a burger joint called Trump Burger, well, he's facing deportation this morning. Yes, looks like deportation and immigration raids apply to Trump voters and non Trump voters alike. And this specific Trump supporter may be having some buyer's remorse. He opened up this burger joint called Trump Burger. It's a Trump themed burger joint. It's located in Houston. And now, this 28-year-old man, Roland Bianey, who's a Lebanese immigrant and the owner of this burger joint, faces deportation for overstaying his visa. He came into the country back in 2019. He was supposed to leave by 2024. It's now 2025, and he was arrested in May, released on bond in June, but now faces deportation. In Utah, alarm bells are going off. Why? Because a Utah state senator, his name is Stuart Adams, revised the state's consent law after his 18-year-old relative was charged with child rape and sodomy involving a 13-year-old. Picture this. An 18-year-old relative of a Utah state senator was charged with rape and sodomy of a 13-year-old. That 18-year-old, who is an adult, would theoretically face up to 25 years in Utah state prison if convicted of these crimes. Not anymore. Why? Because Senator Stuart Adams stepped in, used his position of power to change the state law to essentially, if you are 18 years old and you rape or have sexual relations with someone who is 13 years old, and as the 18-year-old you are still in high school, then you will be tried as a minor. And so Adams's relative, who originally faced 25 years in prison, now faces no time in prison, will likely walk free, and will not have to register as a sex offender. Folks, today is an important day. It marks the deadline for Texas House Democrats to return to the state, according to Republican House Speaker Dustin Burrows. Attorney General Ken Paxton warned that if Democrats miss today's deadline, he will pursue court rulings to have their seats declared vacant, and he's already filed a lawsuit alongside Burrows in Illinois to enforce arrest warrants against the lawmakers who fled Texas. Meanwhile, Governor Greg Abbott earlier this week asked the Texas Supreme Court to vacate the seat of Gene Wu, who's the leader of the House Democrats. So we'll see what's going to happen. But today's the deadline, and it looks like it's going to be a very busy news day. So stay tuned for more. Meanwhile, Chiofeng Jie, I may be pronouncing that incorrectly, a 32-year-old Chinese national, died in ICE custody by suicide at the Moshannon Valley Processing Center in Pennsylvania, just 5 days after being detained. He had recently pled guilty to credit card fraud charges and was found in a shower room with a handwritten note nearby, prompting ICE and DHS to reaffirm their commitments to safe and humane detention practices amid the ongoing scrutiny of ICE's handlings of in-custody deaths. Let's talk about Jeffrey Epstein. House Oversight Committee Republicans are demanding testimony from Bill and Hillary Clinton, James Comey, the former FBI director, and Eric Holder, the former Attorney General of the United States, regarding Jeffrey Epstein. But notably, they're not trying to get the information from Alex Acosta, the former U.S. attorney who actually arranged Jeffrey Epstein's controversial non-prosecution deal. Representative Ayanna Pressley, a Democrat, is leading House Democrats on the Oversight Committee in calling for a congressional hearing focused on centering and prioritizing the voices and experiences of survivors of abuse linked to Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, and others. Today, we learned that the Trump administration has cut funding for the McGurf, the Crime Dog Go For Real campaign, a public education initiative aimed at warning youth about fentanyl-laced counterfeit pills, prompting criticism from advocates and lawmakers who argue that this move undermines recent progress in reducing drug deaths among young Americans. Vice President J.D. Vance is in the United Kingdom and will begin his trip today by meeting with David Lammy, the Foreign Secretary. The Trump administration has doubled the reward for Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro's arrest to $50 million. President Trump has nominated Stephen Miron to temporarily fill a Federal Reserve seat following the resignation of Adriana Kluger. Today, Trump is set to announce a peace agreement between Azerbaijan and Armenia at the White House. Trump said he's willing to meet with Vladimir Putin without Vladimir Putin first meeting with President Zelensky. Let's talk about Gaza for a second. Israel's Security Cabinet overnight has approved a plan to take control of Gaza City, stopping short of declaring a full takeover of the Gaza Strip. The phase plan includes an October 7th evacuation deadline for Gaza City and a halt to aid distribution to pressure civilians to leave. The strategy has drawn global condemnation because of the worsening starving conditions, the deadly conditions at aid sites in Gaza, and the overall humanitarian crisis currently on the ground. And Germany, in response, announced that it will halt the approval of any arms exports that could be used by Israel in Gaza, marking a major policy shift. Folks, that's all the news right now. You want to support my work? Please consider subscribing by clicking the button below, and I'll see you this evening. Hey folks, Aaron Parnas here. Thank you so much for watching The Parnas Perspective. Please consider subscribing to support our work as we grow this independent news media entity into something that rivals mainstream every single day. Thanks so much, and I'll see you soon.